I never thought I'd be the one to walk away. For years, I imagined myself as the reliable son, the one who'd stick around, help when needed, be there for my parents no matter what. But life has a funny way of showing you people's true colors, especially when money is involved. My name is Brian, and I have a twin brother, Alex. Growing up, we were treated differently in ways that were subtle but undeniable. Alex was the golden child, charismatic, athletic, the kind of guy everyone naturally gravitated toward. Our parents adored him. He could break a window playing baseball in the backyard, and they'd laugh it off. If I so much as left my sneakers by the door, I'd get a lecture about responsibility. I didn't resent Alex, not exactly. But I knew, deep down, that if they had to pick between us, it wouldn't be me. Still, I never thought it would come to this. We graduated college on the same day. A huge moment for our family, our parents beaming with pride, taking 100 photos, insisting we pose in every combination possible. Alex, of course, had followed the right path, studying business like Dad always wanted. I, on the other hand, had done things differently. At 16, I started freelancing online, graphic design, coding, whatever paid. I saved every penny, lived frugally. By the time we graduated, I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. I could afford to take my time figuring things out. Then, the next morning, everything changed. Alex came downstairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and found our parents waiting outside with a surprise. A brand new, sleek black BMW parked in the driveway, gleaming under the sun. His face lit up. Holy shit, no way. Mom and Dad grinned, proud of themselves. You earned it, kid, Dad said, clapping Alex on the back. I stood there, watching him run his hands over the car like it was the greatest thing he'd ever seen. I wasn't mad. Really, I wasn't. Alex was their favorite. That wasn't new. I didn't expect a car. That wasn't my style. Maybe a watch. A heartfelt letter. Even just a "we're proud of you, Brian." Instead, Dad turned to me and handed me an envelope. And this is for you. I felt something uneasy settle in my stomach as I opened it. Inside wasn't a gift. It was a bill. A long list of numbers, debts, final totals. I stared at it, confused. What is this? Mom smiled, like she'd just given me the most thoughtful present in the world. It's only fair, Brian. You've been working for years, saving up so much. It's time for you to help out the family. Dad nodded. Alex doesn't have savings yet. He'll need a little help getting started. But you're responsible. You've got money. This is just a small way for you to contribute. I felt my blood turn to ice. They weren't giving me a gift. They were handing me their debt. They had spent years rewarding Alex, making excuses for him, while I worked my ass off. And now, they expected me to bail them out, while they handed him the keys to a luxury car. I looked at Alex, waiting for some kind of reaction. Maybe a little guilt. Maybe a, hey, this isn't right. He just shrugged. Come on, man. You always say you don't care about money. That was when I made my decision. I took a deep breath, folded the paper neatly, and slid it back into the envelope. Thank you for this, I said, my voice even. It's a real eye-opener. Mom beamed. I knew you'd understand. I smiled back. Then I packed my bags and left. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just walked out. They didn't try to stop me. I don't think they fully realized what I was doing, not yet, anyway. But they would. Soon enough. The first few days felt strange. I checked into a cheap Airbnb a few towns over, just far enough that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. The place was small, a studio with a sagging couch, a bed that creaked every time I moved, and a tiny kitchenette that smelled vaguely of burnt toast no matter what I did. But it was mine. For the first time in my life, I wasn't under their roof, following their rules, carrying their weight. I should have felt free. Instead, I felt hollow. Not because I regretted leaving God, no, but because a part of me kept waiting for something. An apology, maybe. A realization. Some sign that my parents had figured out just how badly they'd screwed up. It didn't come. What had come were the calls. At first, they were casual. Hey, Brian, just checking in. Call us back when you get a chance. Then, more insistent. Brian, why aren't you answering? We need to talk. Then, desperate. Please, Brian, we didn't mean it like that. Just call us back. I ignored them all. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first. I spent that first week just existing. Waking up late, working on freelance projects, walking around town with no real destination. I ate cheap takeout, sat in coffee shops for hours, and let myself breathe in a way I never had before. It felt good. It didn't last, By the second week, the calls changed. Alex started calling. At first, it was all bravado. Dude, stop being dramatic. Just come back already. I blocked his number. Then Mom switched tactics. Sweetheart, we're struggling. You know we've always supported you. Can't you help us out just a little? That was rich, coming from the woman who had smiled while handing me a bill instead of a congratulations. Then, the real panic set in. One night, while checking my email, I saw a subject line that made me pause. Please read this. It was from Dad. I hesitated, then clicked. Brian, we're in trouble. We took out some loans we can't pay back. We thought we could handle it, but things are getting worse. Alex doesn't have the means to help us, and we thought you wouldn't mind. You've always been so independent, so responsible. We misjudged the situation, and for that, I'm sorry. But we need you. Please, at least call us back. I stared at the email for a long time. It was the first time they had come anywhere close to admitting they were wrong. But it wasn't an apology. Not really. They weren't sorry for how they had treated me. They were sorry that I had left. Sorry that their golden child wasn't enough to fix their mess. I closed the email without responding. Then, a few days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then, something inside me told me to pick up. Brian. It was my aunt, Karen. She wasn't as involved in the family drama, but she had always been the peacemaker. The one who smoothed things over when tensions ran high. Can we talk for a minute? She asked softly. I sighed. About what? Your parents. They're worried about you. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I know. But I think they're a little more worried about themselves right now. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, please don't be like this. They made a mistake. They thought you'd understand. They didn't mean for things to go this way. I clenched my jaw. A mistake. That's what they called it. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is misplacing your keys. A mistake is not spending years favoring one child while treating the other like an afterthought, then expecting that child to clean up your mess when it all comes crashing down. I took a slow breath, forcing my voice to stay even. Why Aunt Karen? Why did they buy Alex a car if they were struggling? If they were in debt, how the hell is that even possible? Another long pause. Then, finally, she spoke. I don't know, Brian, she admitted. They always wanted to give Alex the best. They thought it would be a good way to celebrate his graduation. They never imagined you'd leave over it. I closed my eyes. That was the problem, wasn't it? They never imagined I'd leave. They thought I'd just take it, like I always had. And what about me? I asked, my voice quieter now. What did I get for graduating? A bill. A bill for their debt. They didn't know how to show you they were proud of you, she said softly. They thought you'd understand. Because you've always been the responsible one. But they were wrong. And they regret it. I shook my head. It wasn't about understanding. It was about respect. It was about years of always coming second. It was about how, instead of giving me a car, or an opportunity, or even just a damn thank you for all the work I'd done, they handed me their problems and expected me to fix them. Aunt Karen sighed. Brian, I think they're finally realizing they've messed up. They just don't know how to fix it. Please, come home. Let them make it up to you. I wasn't sure if I could. The weight of everything was too heavy. But something inside me softened, just a little. Maybe, I said. But they have to show me they're serious. This can't just be another excuse. If they really want to fix things, they need to prove it. She exhaled, relieved. Thank you, Brian. I know this isn't easy. Before I could respond, she added something that made my breath hitch. But there's something you should know. What? Alex called me, too. He's been asking if you'll come back. I frowned. Really? He actually cares. Yes, she said quietly. But it's more than that. He's starting to see the bigger picture. He's starting to realize just how much you've done for the family. And how much he's taken for granted. I didn't know what to think of that. Alex, the golden boy, finally realizing the truth? It sounded too good to be true. But maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. The days passed, but I didn't call back. I wasn't ready. I stayed in my little Airbnb, going through the motions, working, eating, sleeping. But my mind kept circling back to that conversation with Aunt Karen. Alex was starting to see the bigger picture. Did that mean anything? Could it mean anything? I had spent my whole life watching him get everything handed to him while I worked for every scrap of recognition. And now, suddenly, he understood? Just like that? I wasn't buying it. Then, something unexpected happened. It was a Thursday evening when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. Brian. Alex. I didn't say anything right away. Just let the silence stretch between us. Yeah, I finally said, my voice cool. His voice was shaky. I'm sorry. But things got worse. I stayed quiet, waiting. Mom and Dad, they didn't listen, he admitted. I tried to talk to them, but they're stubborn. They kept insisting they'd manage, that they'd figure it out. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. And he swallowed hard. They had to sell the car. For a second, I wasn't sure I heard him right. I sat up. What? They sold the car, he repeated, voice cracking. They had no choice. The bills kept piling up, and we couldn't keep up with the payments anymore. He hesitated, then added, It's gone, Brian. I exhaled slowly, pressing my fingers against my temples. I should have felt bad. I should have felt something. But all I felt was cold, bitter satisfaction. They had chosen Alex. They had handed him a car and thrown my efforts in my face. And now, their choices had caught up to them. They were losing everything. I don't know what to say, man, Alex mumbled. I feel like this is all my fault. That made me pause. Alex had never, not once, taken responsibility for anything in his life. He had always been the one who got away with everything, the one who could do no wrong. And now, here he was, sounding like a guy who just got smacked in the face with reality. You didn't have to lose the car, I said finally, my voice flat. You should have known this would happen, that they wouldn't have the means to keep up. I tried to warn them, he said, sounding miserable. But they wouldn't listen. They kept thinking things would just work out. That something would magically fix everything. That something being me, I said bitterly. Alex didn't argue. I told them, I continued, my voice sharpening. When they handed me that bill instead of a gift, I told them it would come back to bite them. And now it has. Alex let out a shaky breath. I know. I could hear the guilt in his voice, but I wasn't ready to let him off the hook. Not yet. Brian, please, he said, his voice breaking. I know this is messed up, but they didn't mean for it to happen like this. We never wanted it to turn out like this. I closed my eyes. The sheer irony of it all. For years, I had been the one left behind, the one they expected to take care of everything while Alex got to be the priority. And now, for the first time in his life, he was feeling what it was like to be helpless. And I? For the first time, I was the one in control. I had the power now. You know what, Alex? I said, my voice cold. Maybe this is a lesson they needed to learn the hard way. He sucked in a breath. Brian. If they'd been a little more thoughtful, I continued, cutting him off, they wouldn't be in this situation now. I hope it stings. Silence. Then, I heard it. A quiet, broken sound. Alex was crying. For a second, I almost felt guilty. Almost. But then I remembered the way Mom had smiled when she handed me that bill. I remembered how Dad had nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world. I remembered how Alex had shrugged, like it didn't matter. And just like that, the guilt disappeared. His quiet sobs echoed through the phone, but I didn't offer him comfort. Instead, I hung up. And for the first time, I felt something close to justice. The next few days were quiet. No more calls. No more messages. For the first time since I walked away, my phone wasn't buzzing every few hours with another desperate attempt to pull me back in. And honestly, it was freeing. I kept my head down, worked on my freelance projects, and let myself enjoy the silence. No more guilt. No more expectations. Just me, my work, and the knowledge that for once, I wasn't responsible for fixing their mess. Then, Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me it was time to face it head on. I picked up. Brian. It was Mom. Her voice was shaky, desperate. Please, she whispered. Just hear us out. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. It had taken them this long to come to me. And now, here they were. Brian, we know we messed up, she continued. We never should have put all that pressure on you. We should have been better. We're so sorry. Her voice cracked. Please, come back. We'll fix everything. Just come home. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just exhaustion. I ran a hand through my hair. You're sorry, I repeated slowly, letting the sarcasm drip into my words. You're sorry for what, exactly? Buying Alex a car while I was left to handle your mess? Is that what you're sorry for? Silence. Then, a soft, shaky breath. Brian, we never meant for things to get this bad, she said weakly. Please, just come back. We'll do whatever it takes to make it right. You're still our son. We love you. I rolled my eyes. I'm sure you love me, I said, my tone flat. But love doesn't fix years of favoritism. It doesn't erase the fact that you didn't think about me once when you made those decisions. Not once. More silence. I let it stretch between us. Then, finally, I said the words I had been holding in for weeks. And frankly, I paused, letting my voice go quiet. I don't need your apology. It's too late for that. You should have thought about this before. The line went quiet again. Then, a new voice came on the phone. Dad. His tone was strained, desperate. Brian, please. We were wrong. We see that now. We didn't mean for it to come to this. We never meant to push you away. I let out a low laugh. You didn't mean to push me away? My voice was sharp now, the bitterness creeping back in. Well, you sure had a funny way of showing it. You bought a car for Alex, handed me a bill, and expected me to just take it. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. Please, son, Dad's voice cracked. We were just trying to give Alex something. We wanted him to feel proud of his graduation. We thought it would make things right. But we've realized it wasn't worth it. Not if it meant losing you. I closed my eyes, letting out a slow breath. It almost sounded like they were groveling now. Like they had finally figured out what they had done. For a split second, I felt something shift in my chest. But then I remembered, this wasn't the first time they had called me responsible. It wasn't the first time they had expected me to clean up their mess. And it sure as hell wasn't the first time they had chosen Alex. You're right about one thing, Dad, I said, my voice sharp. You lost me. And you're not getting me back just because you suddenly realized your mistakes. I let the silence stretch between us. I wanted them to feel it. The weight of what they had done. I'm done here, I added, voice cold now. So keep your apologies. Keep your guilt. And next time you want to celebrate someone, maybe think about who you're leaving behind. And with that, I hung up. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at my phone. The satisfaction should have been immediate. But instead, all I felt was empty. They had taken me for granted for far too long. But now they knew what it felt like to lose me. Weeks passed after that phone call. And for the first time since I walked away, the silence was absolute. No more messages. No more desperate calls. It was almost louder than the chaos that had come before. I kept going about my life, working, taking on new projects, finally giving myself permission to enjoy the freedom I had fought so hard for. I started going to the gym again, something I'd always put off because I was too busy handling everyone else's problems. I even made a couple of new friends at a coffee shop I'd been frequenting, people who didn't know a damn thing about my family or the mess I had left behind. For the first time, I was living entirely on my own terms. Then, one afternoon, a package arrived. It was from my parents. I stared at it for a long time before opening it, part of me wondering if it was some final attempt to guilt me back into their orbit. Inside was a simple letter. The paper was creased, like it had been folded and unfolded too many times. Brian, we don't expect you to forgive us. We know we hurt you, and we've realized we lost something far more important than a car or any gift we could have given you. But we want you to know we're sorry, and we'll always love you, even if you never come back. Please don't forget that. I read it twice, and I felt nothing. It wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. I folded the letter back up and tossed it into the trash without a second thought. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. For Alex, though, it wasn't over. I had ignored most of his messages over the last few weeks, assuming he was just trying to smooth things over like he always did. But a few days after the package arrived, he sent something different. I know you're probably going to ignore this, but I just wanted to say I get it now. And I'm sorry. I really am. I hope you're doing okay. Short. Simple. And for the first time, it felt real. But I still didn't respond. He had chosen his side. He would have to live with that choice. Life moved on. My business kept growing. I started making real plans for the future, plans that didn't involve them. I found a new apartment, a place that actually felt like home, with big windows and a quiet neighborhood where no one knew me as the responsible one. And my family, they would always have their regrets. But at least I didn't have to carry the weight of them anymore. This wasn't a tragic ending. It was a beginning. Because sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from the people who never saw your worth, so that you can finally see it for yourself.